to Lotus Chat Worldwide. We're here again, and we're glad that you are. We're a group of ladies that love life and we love people, and it's our desire to empower women, especially as a collective, by sharing our experiences, our expertise, our wisdom and insight on all things from a woman's heart. So welcome again. And we're excited today because our topic is, what's love got to do with that? Huh. So we're going to just go right from there. And we're going to start out today with each one of us giving you a little quote and reminding you of who we are. I'm Matilda Cooper, and my quote for today is, ignorance is more confident than competence. Think about it. Take it away, ladies.
And I'm Jennifer Rosales, and my quote for today is, the most beautiful things cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart.
That's great.
I felt it, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Hi, I'm Laura Benson. My favorite poet is Rumi, and he writes, out beyond ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there.
Hi everyone, I'm Zian, and my favorite quote would be from Mark Twain, which is, all you need in this life is ignorance and confidence, and then success is sure. What about you, Jazzy?
Oh, that was similar. There's a theme going on. Hi everyone, I'm Jazzy. So this quote is something that I thought of on the freeway, and what you choose is choosing you. That is it.
You choose. How delightful are all those quotes? Seem like there is a common theme there: ignorance, competence, love, choosing yourself. And so that is why we're here. We're choosing ourselves and encouraging you to choose yourself. You deserve it. Also, ignorance and competence. Wow. We could talk all day on those subjects, but let's just get right to the one at hand. What's love got to do with it? And why is it important to speak the love languages, which Jen will help us understand in just a moment? But why is it important to speak the love languages? It's a way to connect. It's a way to communicate. It's a way for someone who is significant to you and important to you to receive love based upon their needs and how they receive love. It's also an opportunity for you to truly display your heart by being able to identify how you show love and how you best receive it. So understanding the love languages is really important. It can make a significant impact on your relationships and how you connect with individuals in your life. So now Jen is going to talk to us about what the 5 love languages are and where we came up with this whole topic for today.
Thank you, Matilda. Yes, how you give and receive love. That is basically the biggest premise of this wonderful book that we all were touched by, called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, who is a author, speaker, and marriage counselor. And basically he identified 5 different ways that individuals communicate love, and throughout his work and his conversations with multiple people who were going through struggles in their marriages. And he started putting these ideas down and looked at the psychology of it all and realized that there were 5 significant ways that people express love and want to receive love. And the 5 that he identified were words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And I will open up the platform to first say that in a nutshell what each is, and then tell you a little bit about how I basically give and receive love. And then I'm going to ask each of my wonderful Lotus ladies here to also express their ways of how they receive and give love based on the 5 love languages. So words of affirmation. a very common way of expressing love is simple. I mean, in terms of saying, I love you, or I'm there for you, or is there anything I can do for you? Those are just some few examples of that particular way of expressing love. And then quality time. One of the biggest ways to express love is being there for someone physically, and being present with that person. And that goes right into receiving a gift, which is the gift of yourself in a connection with someone. And I know, nowadays we're all rushing around. Sometimes we don't take a moment to give that time or that minute to the person that we love. So those two can really be synonymous with each other. And then acts of service. So those would be examples of that would be, let's say, taking out the trash for someone, cooking dinner for your loved one, taking someone to a place that they absolutely love, getting them in the car and doing that. And then, of course, physical touch, a simple hug, a pat on the back, an embrace, things like that. So those are just very quick examples of the ways people express those 5 different love languages. And there is a way that you can figure out your own. If you go and there's like a small little assessment after you read the book, and you can go to a website where you can figure out your own way of how you primarily express love and want to receive love back. When I took that assessment, I found my top 2 to be quality time and words of affirmation. And those 2 are the ways that most feel impactful to me when I am in relationship with not only a significant other, but with loved ones, family members, friends. And so that's mine. So what about you, ladies? Jazzy, what are your primary love languages?
Mine, it has shifted throughout the years, but as of recent, it's been quality time and acts of service. Ladies.
How about you, Matilda?
I'm on mute. Mine is quality time and words of affirmation.
What about you, Laura?
I'm going to copy Matilda. Mine are the same too: quality time and words of affirmation.
And mine is the same as yours, Jen. Words of affirmation first and then quality time. And I noticed as well that it changes across the years. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I think it's like where I am in my life, like it really determines, because before I was really strong in words of affirmation. And then that has definitely shifted now that I feel like I love how I support that within myself. And as a single mom, I think acts of service is like, you see me running around, you see that I'm tired. So yes, it definitely does change.
I agree with you, Jazzy. I think it changes, but I think there's another thing at play here. Sometimes, especially we as women, we give so much of ourselves that sometimes what I call our soul cup gets empty. And if it's not being filled, then it's hard to show love of any kind. We just kind of go through the motions. But if you have someone in your life that helps you fill that cup, or you've learned how to show yourself self-love, I find that then when my cup is full, it's easier for me to venture into the others that I don't normally go into, such as acts of service or the others. When I'm feeling full, I tend to go into the others feeling grateful and gratitude.
That's true.
I also want to touch a little bit about what Matilda said earlier on, like why is it important for us to show these 5 love languages? It's kind of related to the quote that I picked, which is being ignorant. I think when we do not learn the other person's love languages, it's just like us being ignorant to what and to how the other person receives their love languages. And what I'm really curious about, girls, like, what do you think? Like, we don't go around and ask people, hey, have you done the assessment? Like, which one are you, you know? So how do we know the other person's love languages?
Observation. If you don't ask, observation is really important. Going back to what you just referenced the quote, ignorance is more confident than competence. A lot of times we can feel like in our ignorance that we're doing this thing right. We're exactly what our partner needs and we're responding to them exactly how we want. And we get so confident, but we're ignorant in that confidence because we didn't take time to pay attention and learn. I know in my personal life, with my spouse, he's very big on acts of service. So for him, the way he shows me that he loves me is by doing something for me. And sometimes I'm like, why in the world did you do that? Because I didn't really want that done right now. But because I recognize that that is how he displays love and affection, I receive that and I honor it, even if I am not interested in what he just did. But that's how he shows me he loves me. He was really doing something that he thought was going to benefit me or make me happy. So on the other side, though, I really enjoy quality time. That for me, we can just be sitting in the same room and not say a word. Well, we might not have this conversation, the two of us, but if I say, come on, let's go do this. Let's just sit here and do this. Like the other night, we watched Walt Disney Tangled together. My husband is not a Disney person, but just because he was with me and we had that quality time just laughing and looking at a silly Disney cartoon, it was very meaningful. So him being sensitive to, I want you here with me right now, even if we're doing something that you don't really want to do. He did it for me, just as he did something that I really wasn't paying attention to and didn't. But because he did it, I respected it and honored it because we know how we communicate love to each other. So I think there are different ways. That's just one way. You all may know another way that would be an appropriate response to Zian's question. How do you communicate those lines?
That is really good, Matilda. I don't know if I can top that, but I know that I've had a couple of people in my life that I had a hard time figuring them out. And one was my son. For those of you who have been single parents, it's really kind of tough because you really want to be the perfect parent and you know you can't be. And so I raised a teenage boy on my own and we were always fighting. It was always like this. And so I finally just sat him down and said, these are your 5 choices. What's your love language? He was about 12 or 13. I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? And he looked me in the eye and said, Mom, it's words of affirmation. That's it. And he was very clear. So for the next 6 months, I just watched everything I said. I'd bite my tongue, but I would spin it so that it was a positive thing. Instead of, why didn't you pick up the laundry? I would say, thank you for cleaning the bathroom, or thank you for taking the garbage out. It meant so much to me. And there was a real shift in our relationship. I'm not saying it was easy when you're a teenager, but it changed the dynamic of how we communicated because he felt loved, he felt heard, and it was something that mattered to him. So some people in your life, if you just sit down and say, tell me, what is it? They will know. It's amazing how people know.
I love that, Laura. You inspired me. I'm going to ask my 9-year-old what it is, rather than now that you're talking about Logan. I'm just thinking that my 9-year-old's love languages is probably words of affirmation. And again, that's an assumption. But tying to what Matilda said, I observed that she beams into this ball of light and fire every time when I affirm her with words. And with my younger daughter, it's always like, sit next to me, come and cuddle me. So I don't know, I'm also thinking maybe it's time or physical touch, but I'm gonna ask them that. Thank you, Laura.
My 2-year-old that too, quality time and physical touch.
Well, I do know that, again, we have the communication. You can ask someone, or observation. I think people they can display it if you're keen enough to just kind of zoom in on them and pay attention. They probably show what their needs are sooner or later. Maybe not. What you think?
Well, Matilda, I think that's a great question. First, I wish I had this book with me years ago, especially when I was in my first relationship and about to get married. I think there's just so many points of wisdom in there that just really impacted me when I read it later in life, where I started identifying, as you mentioned, Matilda, if the observation and that whole time I was with that person, I was like, oh, now I know how he was expressing love to me. And there was a lack of understanding between us, which is why the relationship didn't work out, because at the time I wasn't thinking too much into it in terms of what is his love language. But now after reading the book, I realized that the way he showed me love was through acts of service. The way that he was showing me love was through, physical touch. And and our love languages weren't exactly meshing because we hadn't taken the time to ask ourselves that question, each other the question, how do you want me to show you love? Because he was just showing it, that he was doing what he wanted to do in terms of expressing love. And looking back, I'm like, well, if we had a little sit down, if we had said, well, I understand this is the way that you show me love, but this is the way that the way that I receive love in these ways, maybe things might have worked out in a different way. But because we were on different pages in that expression, it ended up tapering off at the end, which is why the relationship, as long as it was and as beautiful as it was, didn't end up panning out. But imagine if we took that time to observe those that we love, to have that sit down, that conversation. This is the way that I understand love. This is the way that I communicate and speak love, whether it's that physical touch or that quality time. Imagine how much understanding can come from that. But again, the biggest thing about that is it's a choice. And there is a part that I remember he said, love is a choice. And so many authors and people have said that in the past. It has to be two people that want to have that sit down, two people that want to have that conversation to come to that understanding, or else you're both speaking different languages. It's almost like if one person is speaking, Spanish, another person is speaking English, but there's no, neither of them can come to an understanding, because it's like neither of them can understand each other because they didn't take the time to learn the other person's language.
Jen, I just have to add to that. That was so powerful. Thank you for that about your first relationship. That just really touched me. One of the chapters in the book that really amazed me was how to love the unlovely. And I don't know about you, but unfortunately, there are unlovely people that cross my path. And I'm like, how do you love the unlovely? And so the author talks about someone who came to him and told him that his love languages didn't work for her. She was married. She was in a very dysfunctional marriage. Her husband, it literally shut down, and there was very little communication. So what he did was he convinced her to find her husband's love languages, and then to take the next 6 months and focus solely on that love language for nothing but 6 months. She figured out his words of affirmation is what she figured. And so for the next 6 months, she worked on making sure everything she said had a tone of words of affirmation. And of course, as you can imagine, she didn't believe him at first, but it started changing, and he started becoming a different person and opening up. I'm not saying this is a miracle cure, but I'm saying it gave them the opportunity to communicate like you were talking about on the same level. And for her to, instead of focusing on what she wasn't getting or her scarcity, looking at what was abundant. And that was what she received in it, is by giving to him in his love language, he started opening it up so they could communicate.
And that's really what builds the bridge, is knowing, like, knowing how to speak in their love language, it starts with wanting to know what it is. And if they're kind of like in that show, I know we kind of talked about this earlier, where you just don't know what their love language is because they're not speaking it. They're just present. But maybe that's a tell too. Maybe the quality time could be one. It's really just keenly observing, like, what gestures do they enjoy? Like, finding the acuity of like what is received well, or maybe even looking as far as what their environment was growing up, because that could be like programmed. Okay, this is what love looks like. It looks like being around each other, not even in the same room, just in the same house. It could look like, well, I got you food, it's on the table. It's knowing those little cues, and also knowing how they naturally show up in the relationship with you. Like, how are they like giving little gestures to show you affection? Because I feel like sometimes the way that we give is how we also receive it, and that's what we perceive as love.
Yes.
And when you can gather that information for what that love language looks like, the next step, because we're all unique in that way, that communicating what those needs are. Because the other person could be quality time and acts of service, and the other partner might be physical touch and gift giving or something. So it's important to communicate, so that way you're still creating some bridge and a catalyst for love to continue to expand. That's what I got.
Beautiful. I'm sure my husband's glad that I'm not gift giving, because I like expensive.
Nothing we can't get ourselves, though.
One thing about, go ahead, Matilda. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, we can get it ourselves.
One thing about families, this is where a lot of hurt and a lot of pain can come from. And I really want you to think about family holidays. If you really want to think about not feeling loved or feeling misunderstood, a family holiday might be an opportunity for you to really look at yourself. I grew up in a family whose their love languages were acts of service and gift giving. So I'd go to Christmas or holidays and I'd be like, quality time. So I'm thinking this is going to be an opportunity for us to sit and have wonderful chats and just spend time loving on each other. And my family was either in fast motion with acts of service, or I had a pile of gifts that I really didn't want on, obviously, because nobody took the quality time to figure out what I really wanted. And so I would leave Christmas thinking, what just happened here? And it wasn't anyone's fault. No one was being hurtful. No one was trying to be mean. But I think if you, as a listener, are listening to this, think about holidays and how everyone goes in with a different love language, different expectations, a different desire to be loved. And then you usually leave going, what just happened here? Once I read that book, it was so powerful for me to realize the quality time would be with people, maybe individually, or not as a holiday time. That probably wasn't the right time for quality time. It was more for the busyness of the season. And it helped me to really understand that it wasn't about love because I didn't get it the way I needed it. It was about being together and people showing you love in the best way they know how. And you can show your love at another time if it doesn't quite match the holiday season. But that's something I learned after reading the book.
I'm curious, what if we can innovate that experience to where it works for all love languages? Like if it was gift giving and you enjoy quality time, could it be possible that maybe you do a game, right, that prolongs them getting their gift? So that way you can experience fun. And so incorporating something new to the dynamic. So making gift giving fun and clever.
I think that's a wonderful idea. And I think you really have to know the people in the group and assess what you can do. But I think every group is different, every family is different, but I love that idea, Jazzy. I think you look at the group you have and say, how can I make change here? How can I make this a positive experience? But sometimes families are steeped in what they know and what they do. And if that's your family out there, just know that there are other ways to show love and they're doing the best they can.
That's true. That's a very true statement. I was sitting here thinking, when it comes to family time and whatever the holiday is or birthday or something like that, if I show up, that is your gift, honey. I'm here. And so I proceed by giving lots of hugs and kisses to everyone that's there. That's the physical touch. And I'm spending my quality time with you by being present. So it's a matter sometimes of how you process it and how you go into the situation and you take ownership for how you are going to extend love to others without an expectation. Because I know I have one person in my life that I think I mentioned pre-recording that gives to me all the time. And I have another significant person in my life who I can't find on the list of love languages, but for me, I will give that person hugs and kisses and time and attention, just like I do the one who's constantly giving. So to be safe so that we're not disappointed and our feelings are not hurt, sometimes we can take the opportunity just to display love the way that we love to be loved, physical touch, quality time, and let people be recipients of that. Because like you said, family members are at different places when it comes to love. And if I go in and I say, well, let's talk about the 5 love languages and you tell me which one is you so that I can, that's not going to cut it either. So then just extending yourself the way that you want to be loved to those individuals, hopefully the law of reciprocity will go into effect and you'll get that love language focused back toward you. That has worked for me. Yeah. What y'all think about that?
That leads me to an interesting question, Matilda.
Uh-huh.
When you, let's say you're in a situation, because I love your feeling of acceptance to just giving the way that you give love, in the ways that you give love, but being okay with not necessarily receiving it back in that moment. Yeah. That's very powerful, because some of us may get caught in that moment, like what just happened. Like I just told somebody I love them and they gave me a hug, but they didn't say it back. Or, I just gave somebody a gift and they said thank you and then they walked away. I mean, I've been in those situations in the past, and you're welcome. Are you okay in that moment? I love that you accepted it, and I think that's a very powerful way of being in the moment and not being attached to the expectation.
Yeah, because you set yourself up for heartbreak.
Yeah.
And love.
Jen, thank you for saying that, Jen. I was feeling kind of like I've got a lot of work to do because I don't quite have it. But what Matilda said is where we all need to be striving for and working for, and that's that self confidence and that ability to love ourselves and just be. And that's a process, but that is where we need to be, is to be able to show our love the way we show it, without expectation, without hurt feelings. And for me, that's still a work in progress, but I'm making progress.
I also like to add on to that I do think that knowing that everyone's love languages is different, and knowing that we display the love language that we hope to receive, then I guess the question would be, how do we bridge the gap between what we want and what we're actually getting, right? And I think the bottom layer here, and if you go deeper, is the courage and willing to be vulnerable to actually maybe ask for it, especially when it's someone that would want to do that, but do not know how.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that. It would probably depend on the level of relationship, where you are with that person. Is this just a casual acquaintance, or is this someone you're truly endeared to? That would, for me, make a significant difference in how I approach them with saying, I want more time with you.
Yes.
I have a 23-year-old daughter, and she will tell me, I need for you to look at me when I'm talking to you and listen and pay attention. She just wants me to focus right in. And when I asked her about her love languages, the first one she said was physical touch. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You're my 23-year-old daughter. What? She's like, why do you think I always try to climb into your lap, even though you scream and say I'm too heavy? It's because she wants to be near me. So that's an opportunity, yes, for me to communicate with her. But I guarantee you, if I try to sit my 6'5" husband down and say, let's talk about the love languages, it ain't gonna go over too well. So it just depends on who you're talking to. And you knowing that person and being able to be vulnerable and extend yourself. The greatest love, I think, though, is to truly love outward focused and expect nothing in return. And you set yourself up for heartache, but it's a chance you have to take when you're truly endeared to someone. You love regardless. Yeah. You can do it though. It's possible. It's a work. It's a work.
Thank you for saying that, Matilda.
Oh,
I love what you just said about you love regardless.
yes.
And that definitely is, I think, something, because we're all in a search for that love that does last, that love that, you know, won't end when there are troubles or challenges or miscommunications and things like that. But being unattached to an outcome in terms of when you are in a relationship with someone leaves it open, leaves your heart open and vulnerable, but it may seem a little scary, but it is definitely worth it. And I'm actually, and the reason why I'm talking about this, because I'm on that journey right now. When you have experienced, I'm sure as many women out there probably broken relationship after broken relationship, you kind of start closing yourself off. You start thinking that, it's me, there's got to be something. But then when you reach that, as we've talked in other previous Lotus Chat episodes about self-awareness and self-love, then you start realizing that maybe at the time it wasn't supposed to work out. Maybe you two weren't supposed to meet at that, at that time, at the level that you were both at. And, you continue to stay hopeful and you focus on yourself and you focus on bettering things in your life or focus on things that make you happy. I mean, it really is a choice when you decide to love someone. But most of all, I mean, in the book, it does say, it starts also loving yourself as well in order for you to know how to love another person.
You respect yourself enough to communicate what your love language is.
Yeah.
Is the relationship well connected enough to communicate that how they receive love is important? How do we continue the reciprocation of what love is? I love what you just shared, because that just sparked within me that it is, what are we intentionally creating in love? How are we intentionally creating love? And as we mentioned earlier, and to love without expectation. So if love is a choice and something that we always choose to work on, and we want to create it to be something greater than communication, comprehension are totally key. And is this something that we're willing to compromise? Just finding those feats is what's going to create a healthy dynamic and healthy relationships all around. Even when it comes to our kids or our coworkers or our partners, our friend circles,
Mm-hmm.
I agree, Jazzy. The word compromise hits a spot because for me, like despite knowing that my partner's love languages is physical touch, I can tell you sometimes I just don't feel like showing it, even though I know that it is. I'm tired, and that's not what my love languages is, and that's not what I feel like doing at this point. So, but knowing that is important and being able to compromise that, compromising each other's love languages.
Yeah.
I think that's crucial as well.
So I would further say, as I said, that it depends on the level of relationship. If you have a casual acquaintance, that's going to be communicated one way. Someone you're more intimate with, it does get a little itchy, sticky sometimes. I don't want to convey, though, that you don't set healthy boundaries, because you must do that. Even when you are trying to figure out where a relationship is going, what is that love language? How are we meshing? Are we meshing? Are we conveying the love languages the way that I need or the way that he needs? You still have to be mindful that it's healthy and necessary to set boundaries so that you're not the one who's constantly giving, and putting forth the effort, and the other person is just always on the receiving end of all your goodness, kindness, and love. Always set healthy boundaries. Yeah. Communicate. This is what I need from you. And then you may have to go back and say, remember what I need from you. Honey, after the third time, we're not talking about this anymore. If you can't do what I want, let's go.
And you determine if that's a healthy or unhealthy relationship.
Yeah, you have to set those boundaries. And women, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but we as women have a tendency to compromise the most because we are nurturers by nature. And we're thinking that it's just going to get better. Oh, I can help them learn how to love me. Oh,
the compassion is real.
Yeah.
The natural nurturing. It's okay. Just,
when you're in a situation where you have to forfeit what you desire and your needs, it's not worth it anymore. So you do work at it, but you do have to set boundaries.
Matilda, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of women, including myself, think if we just keep giving and giving and giving, then somehow it'll all work out and all be great. But that's not the way it works. There have to be healthy boundaries. And the thing that I'm working on is filling my own cup every day, loving myself, nurturing myself, not in a bragging or boastful way, but to do that lovingly for myself so I know what it looks like. So that I know that I don't have to put up with someone that doesn't respect or doesn't love or doesn't say to me something that resonates beautifully. That and we're talking a lot about love languages and giving, but it's really hard when you have a partner that's not giving or not communicating or not. And so then you start thinking, well, where is it going to come from for me? And Jen mentioned something that was powerful too about pretty soon you have failed relationships and you wonder, what did I do? What could I have done? What happened? Is this just the way it's going to be? And I think it's instead of looking at it that way, I'm learning it's personal growth in myself. It's learning. And one of my favorite authors is Jeff Brown. If you can read anything of Jeff Brown, do so. He's amazing. But he talks about the impact of relationships does not mean the length of time. So many people think, wow, you've been married 70 years. That's amazing. You like, the Guinness Book of World Records kind of thing. But what he talks about is the impact in our lives. What made us grow? What made us better people? What made us see inside of ourselves and become better? That's the impact of the relationship, not length of time. And so thank you, Matilda, for sharing that, because I think us, but also the women listening, need to really be reminded that you need to set healthy boundaries. You need to love yourself, not take something if it's not respectful or it's not loving to you. And I loved what Jazzy said, that maybe you need to decide if that's really the relationship for you or not, instead of holding on and hoping for better.
It was huge for me. One of my relationships, I had to really make that hard decision, because I realized that my unconditional love for them compromised the unconditional love for myself. So what that meant was I was unconditionally loving to them, forgiving, compassionate, but the love I gave to myself was so conditional.
Yeah.
That is a compromise that I cannot make. And so I learned that wasn't healthy, but that was me being my own red flag.
Yes.
So, but we need to understand the contrast and know what we do want and what we will choose moving forward in order to move forward. So that was fine.
Jazzy, thank you for saying that, because ultimately what we want is to have healthy relationship with self
Yes.
and healthy relationship with others, whether it's your partner, your child, your family member. You want to have healthy relationships. And if there is a toxicity there where you are feeling constantly depleted in some way in the relationship, then that is when you have to really take a step back and think, is this really worth me losing myself? Because you don't want to lose yourself in a relationship. And I speak from experience, and that is why I'm saying it. And I know there are a lot of women out there watching that sometimes may feel that way, but don't let that happen. You are the most important relationship you will ever have is with yourself, first and foremost. So that is the first person that you should love. And then, of course, make sure that your relationships are healthy, that you're communicating properly, that you're feeling respected. And yeah, that's my experience.
I want to add to that, because I think a question that might come up would be, well, how do you know if that relationship is healthy or not? Because I can go through all this and I can take this, but I guess to really step out of your personal ego is to really assess, is this the type of relationship I would want my child to have? Or this relationship honorable if my mother were to have this relationship? Is this respectable? Does this feel like something, I would want to see my sister go through? And if you say no in any of those, that's how you know. That's your the check. At least that's what I've applied. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it could be, as a woman, we're like, no, it's okay. Like all that prior conditioning to what we've accepted and what we maybe witnessed, like that was okay. Mm-hmm. And but so we find a way to justify why things that are not okay are okay. So stepping outside of self and looking at as the observer, would this be okay if I saw my friend go through this, or my sister, my mom, my whichever?
Wow. That is so powerful, Jazzy. I want to add one thing to that too.
Absolutely.
If you don't have someone in your life that you can mirror it to, think about this. If you feel you're pulling the cart of the relationship by yourself and you're doing all of the work, that's the time to really look at it. Mm-hmm. There needs to be some kind of a healthy give and take, healthy balance. Sometimes you'll feel you're giving more, sometimes the other person will be giving more. But if you're doing all the heavy lifting, that's another key that something's not right.
Red flags are not Six Flags.
Yeah, not Six Flags.
I also like what you said there, Jen, like the greatest relationship is the one that you have with yourself. So if you know yourself well enough, then can you apply that love languages on yourself?
Absolutely.
Yes. Wow.
Ooh, I love that, Deanne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if we think quality time is important for us, then maybe we should spend enough quality time with ourselves doing what we love. And if we think that words of affirmation is what we want, then maybe write words of affirmation to ourselves and say that to ourselves, right? Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the gift giving to myself. And physical touch. how about practicing some self-care where you're doing, when you're shaving your legs, doing an extra massage with a sugar scrub, those kinds of things, just to be loving on yourself by taking care of your body. That would be a really good way to display physical touch with self-love.
Or even the hugs. I know that sounds crazy, but if it wasn't for Zoom, if it wasn't for the pandemic and this access, like the hugging yourself as often as
Yes.
that would have been in the past, now it's like, oh, like it's actually kind of nice.
That's
Yes.
beautiful. It's beautiful. Acts of service.
Setting
What-
yourself up for success.
Setting myself.
Yeah, so
Outsourcing the service that you don't like, the chores.
that part too.
Good idea.
That would be me.
Sounds like we've got a new book opportunity, the 5 self-love languages. Yeah, and how to practice self-love. So that's really important. Yeah. So where do we go from here? All of you have just made such beautiful points this evening, and being in a relationship is difficult. It's challenging. It can be, it's give and take. Sometimes it's 50-50, sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 70-30. There are no perfect relationships, but I think determining that is one that's worth the work is the first step. And once you determine that, that's when you start to dig a little deeper. And identifying those love languages really helps you to know how to love this person by doing, giving of your time, touch. I mean, it covers every area when you think about it, that are the basic components of a relationship. So, and then setting healthy boundaries due to self-love. That should be number one. So then we can say, what's love got to do with it? Everything. Because when you really think about it, most of us want to feel connected to someone. We want to have that special individual in our life that we know we can run to, whether it's a significant other or a family member or a child. There's that someone out there that we want to feel like is our person. So I just would challenge everyone that's listening to identify who that person is and to pursue that love, pursue understanding what that language is, pursue understanding how they want to be loved and how you feel authentic with giving love to others. And then go for it. Go for it. Make it happen. And if it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, my mother used to say, one monkey don't stop no show. Now, I don't know what she meant by that. I think she meant that if it doesn't work out, there's always another opportunity. That I need to Google that. So, yeah, you just keep moving. Keep moving.
My grandmother used to say, don't worry about it. There's a lid for every pot. If you can't find the right lid, there's another one. So
My gosh, those should have been our quotes tonight to start out, Laura. One monkey doesn't stop the show. Did we cover?
Love what you shared, Miss Matilda. I have a question that stems from that now.
Oh,
So
no.
when you are with someone or with a group, what does it feel like when you are shown love?
For me, lots of hugs. Just sit and talk to me. Let me find out what's going on with you. Let me find out if you're okay. I don't know why that is. My daughter says, Mommy, you never buy anything for yourself. You're always giving to other people. What do you need? I just like to be present with individuals and understand where they are and how they're feeling and what they need and what they want to talk about. And so just having that quality time and hugs. I do like hugs. Yeah, lots of hugs. So that's what it feels like for me. How about
For
you,
me,
Laura? Oh, and
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it definitely feels like connection. I think when someone bothers to show you your love languages or, bothers to take that time to know you and show that to you, I think that is definitely connection.
What about you, Jennifer?
Well, I think for me, when someone tells me or shows me that they love me, there is that feeling of not only connection, but recognition that they see me and they love me and they want to be in connection with me. I love that. That's whether it's a friend or somebody at home or my significant other. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Beautiful. Laura, what about
Well,
you?
for me, as you know, quality time, but also words of affirmation. So if I'm with someone or a group of people and we're spending time talking, the conversation is what I call balanced. There's not one person doing all the talking about themselves, but we're actively engaged in respecting each other and listening. And when someone needs more, then we listen. But I love to be heard, but I also love to be asked questions because I want to be seen, just like what Jen said. And so when I'm with a person or group that does that, that is powerful for me.
Awesome.
When I'm around a group or with someone, I feel like what it feels like to me when I feel love is expansive, because I start to feel joy because I am seen, I am appreciated, I'm present with that feeling. And so that starts to expand. And then I get excited and then I want to share more. So for me, love is electrifying. It's currency, energetic currency that I get to exchange. And I feel like love ultimately, it's rich. I can feel rich from love. So I think that's it. Ladies, would you like to add anything else to this space?
For me, it would be for those women who are listening out there, I think when you do all your best to show your 5 love languages and you don't receive the same, I think my advice would be to assume that they're doing the best that they can, because I know that that feeling can be really hurtful when you don't receive back, even though you've tried so hard to know and understand. So if you assume that the other person is really doing the best that they can, then I think you will feel better.
Very true. Make sure you communicate the needs too. Well, I just want to thank you, ladies, for showing up powerfully as you did today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been so much fun, as it is every week. So what's love got to do with it? Everything. Love has everything to do with it. So on our next episode, it is join us, because it's when doing nothing is everything. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.